Developing a research project. Beginning a research project. Pursuing your own research can be a challenging yet rewarding endeavor. This module is designed to walk you through the initial steps of developing a research project and implementing a research design. You may already have a topic and some secondary sources, or even a draft of a paper you have written for one of your upper-level courses. In fact, you may have a research design proposal developed in a methodology class you have taken. If so, this is great news, and you've already begun to think about your research. However, if you do not have your research plan yet, your first step will be to identify your research interests. Developing a research project may seem overwhelming at first, but this module is designed to walk you through the process and break down a research project into manageable components. If you wish to develop a research project and collect primary data, then you must create a comprehensive plan first. This plan will be a detailed outline of what you will do, how you will do it, and when you will accomplish each task. In Social Research Methods, Qualitative and Quantitative Approaches, published in 2006 by Newman, he argues there are 7 steps in the research process, which include select topic, 2, focus question, 3, design study, 4, collect data, 5, analyze data, 6, interpret data, and 7, inform others. A qualitative researcher may also wish to acknowledge their social self and adopt a perspective before designing the study. In other words, qualitative researchers will often begin with a list of hypotheses that are theory-driven. However, the data needs to speak for itself and confirm or deny one of your hypotheses. Qualitative researchers are more concerned about richness of data and detailed description rather than developing generalizations out of data collected, as a quantitative researcher would prefer. Take a moment and consider whether you wish to pursue qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methodology research, keeping in mind that this choice is often determined by your discipline standards. The first thing you need to do is to identify a research question. Begin by selecting a topic and/or research interest. Once you've identified an important problem or question that you wish to research, you should then approach a faculty member to become your mentor. However, you do not need to have a research topic or plan before approaching a faculty mentor. In fact, some disciplines, like biology for example, it is the norm for a faculty mentor to select the research topic and experimental design. At this point, your research question or hypothesis need not be formalized, and a faculty member can help guide you even in the early stages to help refine the research topic in question. Your mentor will advise you throughout the process, but you are responsible for doing the research, collecting, and analyzing the data. Once you have a concise question, you should begin the process of collecting scholarly articles on your topic. In fact, you may find that your research question and/or hypothesis become clearer after completing your literature review. It's very common for your research question to change after learning about what other scholars have written on your topic. The articles you collect will be the basis of your literature review later on when you write up your results. So create an organized system to keep these articles and books at your fingertips. You may also wish to keep a document on your computer that summarizes the key ideas and methods of each book or article you read. This is called an annotated bibliography. By creating your own annotated bibliography, you can better keep track of your sources, and this will help you at a later stage in the research when you begin to do analysis of your data. The lit review is an important step in the research process because you need to be aware of what research has already been completed and the current scholarly debates on your topic. You should use the online databases at the Claire T. Kearney Library to collect scholarly articles and books. In some cases, you may wish to contact a librarian for help finding articles and to use the databases. In fact, you have a library liaison for your discipline, which is familiar with the best journals and databases for your field of study. By completing the literature review, you'll be better able to answer the question, the so what question. In other words, You can explain why your research is necessary and adds to the academic conversation. It's important to establish why your research project should be completed and what will be unique about your research. The next step is to create a detailed research plan that identifies the techniques you will use to collect the data. You want to create a research design. After completing the literature review, you should schedule a meeting with your mentor to discuss your specific research question and hypotheses. Once you've done so, you will be able to start thinking about how you will test these ideas. This will lead to a number of questions regarding study design and data collection. There are many things to consider in how you will conduct your study, many of which are dependent on whether your study is a review of existing data, an observation, or a true experiment, and whether your data will be quantitative or qualitative. Whatever the type of study and data, you will need to consider some practical questions surrounding data collection. What are your data points, people, or artifacts? From where will they come? Is there specialized equipment or permission you need to collect your data? You'll need to write your own research design proposal. The design proposal will be the plan you create before collecting any data. Your faculty members should be highly involved, and you should expect that it will take many iterations to finalize a proposal. In some cases, the proposal will also need to be approved by a review board and may take several weeks or even months depending on the nature of your research. Your faculty member will know whether you need approval from any review board and how long it might take and how to submit the application. You should first determine what kind of evidence is needed to answer your research question. It's important to be realistic at this stage in the research process. You may find that you have to revise your research question if it is not possible for you to collect the evidence needed to answer your question. If you're working with people or animals, special approval and training is needed, and the extent to which is often determined by a review board like IRB, IBC, or IACUC. As a researcher, you must act in an ethical manner. Ethical conduct is your responsibility, and you should spend some time carefully considering the ethical components of your research if you plan to use human participants and seek approval from UMass Dartmouth's IRB, Institutional Review Board. You may, for example, consider whether you need consent forms, whether your participants will be anonymous or confidential, and how your data will be stored to ensure privacy. After you've obtained approval from the review board, you must also consider analysis and data collection. Salkind identifies 4 steps in data collection, which include the construction of a data collection form used to organize the data you collect, the designation of the coding strategy used to represent data on a data collection form, the collection of the actual data, and entry onto the data collection form. The data collection process can be very long and tedious, but it's important to collect your data very carefully. Collecting your data requires that you keep careful records, perhaps a duplicate copy, and complete the research design you set out to do. For example, if you are conducting a survey, you need to keep and store files with the original completed survey or consent form. In most cases, you'll need to identify possible or potential issues concerning participant safety, confidentiality, and voluntary participation. If you're completing interviews using an audio recorder, you'll need to transcribe the audio and keep it in a password-protected computer or locked file. You do not ever want to discard your original data. Data collection is a vital step in the research process and takes a considerable amount of time and effort. The collection of data is far from the final step in research. Once you've collected your data, you need to begin to analyze, interpret it, write up your results, and share your findings with others. After you've completed the 4 steps of the process, you begin doing analysis. The interpretation of data using theories is where your literature review will become extremely important again. Also, your mentor will be a guide during this stage of your research. Most likely, you'll be using a similar analysis method to your faculty member in his or her research, and as a result, he or she will be able to help you format your data and help you with the analysis. As with all steps of the research process, you should not expect your faculty member to analyze the data for you. They are there rather to guide and help you along each step of the way. Most majors require one or more classes in research design and statistics, and the information you learned in those classes will be invaluable to you along the way now that you are conducting your own research. You want to inform others about your research. And so once you've completed your research, you'll want to share it. The first step is to write up your results in a paper or a poster format. Ask your mentor if they know of any conferences where undergraduate students may present their research papers. Talk to your departments, your dean's office, or the Office of Undergraduate Research to see if they have any upcoming events for undergrads to present their original research. In fact, you may wish to apply for the awards offered by the Office of Undergraduate Research to support your data collection or to travel to a conference where you can present your findings. One of the benefits of collecting primary research data is to write up your results and share them with your community. This is an excellent opportunity to join the academic conversations on your research topic. Please complete this self-test. 1. Data collection is the final step in the research process. True or false? 2. A literature review helps you determine the significance of your research question. True or false? 3. You can begin collecting data before choosing a research question. True or false? Your answers. The first question is false. Data collection is not the final step in the research process. 2. A literature review helps you determine the significance of your research question. This is true. 3. You begin collecting data before choosing a research question. False. Here are some additional resources you may wish to consult.